I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. Welcome to the ultimate DP-700 exam masterclass. Are you ready to crack the DP-700 exam in one go? You're in the right place. In this session, we'll arm you with powerful insights and hand-picked questions that can make all the difference in your exam performance. We've scanned the web using intelligent crawlers to gather the most critical and high-impact questions, all compiled into one powerful PDF resource. You can download it from the link in the description. Not only will we explore these must-practice questions, but we'll also share real exam experiences and pro tips to give you that competitive edge. Let's dive into the key questions that could shape your success. Question 1. You have a Fabric workspace. You have semi-structured data. You need to read the data by using T-SQL, KQL, and Apache Spark. The data will only be written by using Spark. What should you use to store the data? A. A lakehouse. B. An event house. C. A data mart. D. A warehouse. Correct answer A. A lakehouse. Explanation. Only a lakehouse supports access through T-SQL, KQL, and Apache Spark together. Event house cannot be written by Spark, so lakehouse is the correct choice. Question 2. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You have an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named Database 1 that is accessed by using an on-premises data gateway. You need to copy data from Database 1 to Warehouse 1. Which item should you use? A. A data flow Gen 1 data flow. B. A data pipeline. C. A KQL query set. D. A notebook. Correct answer B. A data pipeline. Explanation. A data pipeline is designed for structured data movement from on-prem SQL Server. It works directly with on-premises data gateways. Question 3. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You have an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named Database 1 that is accessed by using an on-premises data gateway. You need to copy data from Database 1 to Warehouse 1. Which item should you use? A. An Apache Spark job definition. B. A data pipeline. C. A data flow Gen 1 data flow. D. An event stream. Correct answer B. A data pipeline. Explanation. Data pipelines provide efficient and reliable batch data loading. They integrate seamlessly with gateways and warehouses. Question 4. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a notebook named Notebook 1. In Workspace 1, you create a new notebook named Notebook 2. You need to ensure that you can attach Notebook 2 to the same Apache Spark session as Notebook 1. What should you do? A. Enable high concurrency for notebooks. B. Enable dynamic allocation for the Spark pool. C. Change the runtime version. D. Increase the number of executors. Correct answer A. Enable high concurrency for notebooks. Explanation. High concurrency allows multiple notebooks to share the same Spark session. This provides a unified execution environment. Question 5. You have a Fabric warehouse named DW1. DW1 contains a table that stores sales data and is used by multiple sales representatives. You plan to implement row-level security RLS. You need to ensure that the sales representatives can see only their respective data. Which warehouse object do you require to implement RLS? A. Stored procedure. B. Constraint. C. Schema. D. Function. Correct answer D. Function. Explanation. RLS uses a function to define filtering logic for each user. The function determines which rows they can access. Question 6. You have a Fabric deployment pipeline that uses 3 workspaces named Dev, Test, and Prod. You need to deploy an event house as part of the deployment process. What should you use to add the event house to the deployment process? A. GitHub Actions. B. A deployment pipeline. C. An Azure DevOps pipeline. Correct answer, C. An Azure DevOps pipeline. Explanation. Event houses cannot be deployed using Fabric deployment pipelines. Azure DevOps pipelines support full CI/CD for event houses. Question 7. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You plan to deploy Warehouse 1 to a new workspace named Workspace 2. As part of the deployment process, you need to verify whether Warehouse 1 contains invalid references. The solution must minimize development effort. What should you use? A. A database project. B. A deployment pipeline. C. A Python script. D. A T-SQL script. Correct answer B. A deployment pipeline. Explanation. Deployment pipelines automatically validate items and detect invalid references. This reduces manual scripting or checking. Question 8. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a real-time intelligence solution and an event house. Users report that from OneLake File Explorer, they cannot see the data from the event house. You enable OneLake availability for the event house. What will be copied to OneLake? A. Only data added to new databases that are added to the event house. B. Only the existing data in the event house. C. No data. D. Both new data and existing data in the event house. E. Only new data added to the event house. Correct answer E. Only new data added to the event house. Explanation. Enabling OneLake availability syncs only future incoming data. Existing event house data is not retroactively copied. Question 9. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1. You plan to integrate Workspace 1 with Azure DevOps. You will use a Fabric deployment pipeline named Deploy Pipeline 1 to deploy items from Workspace 1 to higher environment workspaces as part of a medallion architecture. You will run Deploy Pipeline 1 by using an API call from an Azure DevOps pipeline. You need to configure API authentication between Azure DevOps and Fabric. Which type of authentication should you use? A. Service principal. B. Microsoft Enter username and password. C. Manage private endpoint. D. Workspace identity. Correct answer A. Service principal. Explanation. Service principals provide secure, automated authentication for pipelines. They follow least privilege best practices. Question 10. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains an Apache Spark job definition named Job 1. You have an Azure SQL database named Source 1 that has public internet access disabled. You need to ensure that Job 1 can access the data in Source 1. What should you create? A. An on-premises data gateway. B. A managed private endpoint. C. An integration runtime. D. A data management gateway. Correct answer B. A managed private endpoint. Explanation. Managed private endpoints allow Fabric Spark to connect to private Azure SQL endpoints securely. They bypass public internet exposure. Question 11. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a data pipeline named Pipeline 1 and a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. You have a deployment pipeline named Deploy Pipeline 1 that deploys Workspace 1 to Workspace 2. You restructure Workspace 1 by adding a folder named Folder 1 and moving Pipeline 1 to Folder 1. You use Deploy Pipeline 1 to deploy Workspace 1 to Workspace 2. What occurs to Workspace 2? A. Folder 1 is created, Pipeline 1 moves to Folder 1, and Lakehouse 1 is deployed. B. Only Pipeline 1 and Lakehouse 1 are deployed. C. Folder 1 is created, and Pipeline 1 and Lakehouse 1 move to Folder 1. D. Only Folder 1 is created and Pipeline 1 moves to Folder 1. Correct answer A. Folder 1 is created, Pipeline 1 moves to Folder 1, and Lakehouse 1 is deployed. Explanation. Deployment pipelines mirror folder hierarchy and item placement. All item moves and structures are replicated. Question 12. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a Lakehouse and a notebook named Notebook 1. Notebook 1 reads data into a data frame from a table named Table 1 and applies transformation logic. The data from the data frame is then written to a new delta table named Table 2 by using a merge operation. You need to consolidate the underlying Parquet files in Table 1. Which command should you run? A. Vacuum. B. Broadcast. C. Optimize. D. Cache. Correct answer, C. Optimize. Explanation. Optimize compacts small Parquet files into larger ones for performance. This reduces fragmentation and improves read efficiency. Question 13. You have 5 Fabric workspaces. You are monitoring the execution of items by using Monitoring Hub. You need to identify in which workspace a specific item runs. Which column should you view in Monitoring Hub? A. Start time. B. Capacity. C. Activity name. D. Submitter. E. Item type. F. Job type. G. Location. Correct answer, G. Location. Explanation. The location column shows the workspace where the job executed. This is essential when multiple workspaces share capacities. Question 14. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named DW1. DW1 is loaded by using a notebook named Notebook 1. You need to identify which version of Delta was used when Notebook 1 was executed. What should you use? A. Real-time hub. B. OneLake Data Hub. C. The Admin Monitoring Workspace. D. Fabric Monitor. E. The Microsoft Fabric Capacity Metrics app. Correct answer D. Fabric Monitor. Explanation. Fabric Monitor provides detailed Spark and Delta execution metadata. It includes the Delta Lake version used. Question 15. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1. Your company acquires GitHub licenses. You need to configure source control for Workspace 1 to use GitHub. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. Which permissions do you require to ensure that you can commit code to GitHub? A. Actions read and write, and contents read and write. B. Actions read and write only. C. Contents read and write only. D. Contents read and commit statuses read and write. Correct answer, C. Contents read and write only. Explanation. Only contents read and write is required for committing changes. Other permissions are unnecessary for basic Git operations. Question 16. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1. You plan to configure Git integration for Workspace 1 by using an Azure DevOps Git repository. An Azure DevOps admin creates the required artifacts to support the integration of Workspace 1. Which details do you require to perform the integration? A. The organization, project, Git repository, and branch. B. The personal access token, PAT, for Git authentication and the Git repository URL. C. The project, Git repository, branch, and Git folder. D. The Git repository URL and the Git folder. Correct answer A. The organization, project, Git repository, and branch. Explanation. Fabric needs the organization, project, repo, and branch path for integration. These define the connection endpoint. Question 17. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. You plan to create a data pipeline named Pipeline 1 to ingest data into Lakehouse 1. You will use a parameter named param1 to pass an external value into Pipeline 1. The param1 parameter has a data type of int. You need to ensure that the pipeline expression returns param1 as an int value. How should you specify the parameter value? A. At pipeline.parameters.param1. B. At pipeline.parameters.param1. C. At pipeline.parameters, param1. D. At pipeline.parameters.param1. Correct answer A. At pipeline.parameters.param1. Explanation. Numeric parameters are referenced directly using at pipeline.parameters. Name. This returns the value as an integer. Question 18. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. Workspace 1 contains the following items: a Dataflow Gen 2 Dataflow that copies data from an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database to Lakehouse 1. A notebook that transforms files and loads the data to Lakehouse 1. A data pipeline that loads a CSV file to Lakehouse 1. You need to develop an orchestration solution in Fabric that will load each item one after the other. The solution must be scheduled to run every 15 minutes. Which type of item should you use? A. Notebook. B. Warehouse. C. Dataflow Gen 2 Dataflow. D. Data pipeline. Correct answer D. Data pipeline. Explanation. Pipelines orchestrate multiple activities in sequence with built-in scheduling. They are ideal for combining data flows and notebooks. Question 19. You have a Fabric deployment pipeline that uses 3 workspaces named Dev, Test, and Prod. You need to deploy an event house as part of the deployment process. What should you use to add the event house to the deployment process? A. An Azure DevOps pipeline. B. An event stream. C. GitHub Actions. Correct answer A. An Azure DevOps pipeline. Explanation. Fabric deployment pipelines do not support event house deployment. Azure DevOps pipelines allow full CI/CD automation for event house resources. Question 20. You have a Fabric warehouse named DW1. DW1 contains a table that stores sales data and is used by multiple sales representatives. You plan to implement row-level security (RLS). You need to ensure that the sales representatives can see only their respective data. Which warehouse object do you require to implement RLS? A. Trigger. B. Schema. C. Function. D. Database role. Correct answer C. Function. Explanation. RLS requires a function to define the filtering logic. This function is used in the security policy to restrict user access. Question 21. You have a Fabric warehouse named DW1. DW1 contains a table that stores sales data and is used by multiple sales representatives. You plan to implement row-level security (RLS). You need to ensure that the sales representatives can see only their respective data. Which warehouse object do you require to implement RLS? A. Security policy. B. Table. C. Trigger. D. Stored procedure. Correct answer A. Security policy. Explanation. A security policy enforces the row-level filtering defined by the RLS function. It applies the rules automatically at query time. Question 22. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You plan to deploy Warehouse 1 to a new workspace named Workspace 2. As part of the deployment process, you need to verify whether Warehouse 1 contains invalid references. The solution must minimize development effort and provide detailed information about the invalid references. What should you use? A. A DBT project. B. A deployment pipeline. C. A Python script. D. A database project. Correct answer B. A deployment pipeline. Explanation. Deployment pipelines automatically detect broken references during validation. They require no custom scripting and give clear error reporting. Question 23. You have a Fabric workspace that contains an event stream named Event Stream 1. Event Stream 1 processes data from a thermal sensor by using event stream processing, and then stores the data in a lakehouse. You need to modify Event Stream 1 to include the standard deviation of the temperature. Which transform operator should you include in the Event Stream 1 logic? A. Expand. B. Group by. C. Union. D. Aggregate. Correct answer B. Group by. Explanation. Standard deviation is a statistical aggregation that requires grouping. The group by operator enables computing stats like averages and deviations. Question 24. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. In an external data source, you have data files that are 500 gigabytes each. A new file is added every day. You need to ingest the data into Lakehouse 1 without applying any transformations. The solution must meet the following requirements. Trigger the process when a new file is added. Provide the highest throughput. Which type of item should you use to ingest the data? A. Event stream. B. Dataflow Gen 2. C. Streaming dataset. D. Data pipeline. Correct answer D. Data pipeline. Explanation. Data pipelines provide the highest throughput for large file ingestion. They also support event-based triggers to detect new files automatically. Question 25. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. In an external data source, you have data files that are 500 gigabytes each. A new file is added every day. You need to ingest the data into Lakehouse 1 without applying any transformations. The solution must meet the following requirements. Trigger the process when a new file is added. Provide the highest throughput. Which type of item should you use to ingest the data? A. Data pipeline. B. Environment. C. KQL query set. D. Dataflow Gen 2. Correct answer A. Data pipeline. Explanation. Data pipelines are optimized for high-volume batch movement. They also support file arrival triggers, making them ideal for daily ingestion. Question 26. You are developing a data pipeline named Pipeline 1. You need to add a copy data activity that will copy data from a Snowflake data source to a Fabric warehouse. What should you configure? A. Degree of copy parallelism. B. Fault tolerance. C. Enable staging. D. Enable logging. Correct answer C. Enable staging. Explanation. Staging is required when copying from Snowflake to Fabric destinations. It boosts performance and ensures compatibility during data movement. Question 27. You have a Fabric workspace that contains an event stream named Event Stream 1. Event Stream 1 outputs events to a table named Table 1 in a lakehouse. The streaming data is sourced from motorway sensors and represents the speed of cars. You need to add a transformation to Event Stream 1 to average the car speeds. The speeds must be grouped by non-overlapping and contiguous time intervals of 1 minute. Each event must belong to exactly one window. Which windowing function should you use? A. Sliding. B. Hopping. C. Tumbling. D. Session. Correct answer C. Tumbling. Explanation. Tumbling windows create fixed, non-overlapping intervals, perfect for 1-minute buckets. Each event falls into exactly one window. Question 28. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You have an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named Database 1 that is accessed by using an on-premises data gateway. You need to copy data from Database 1 to Warehouse 1. Which item should you use? A. A data pipeline. B. An Apache Spark job definition. C. A streaming data flow. D. A notebook. Correct answer A. A data pipeline. Explanation. Data pipelines provide gateway-enabled ingestion from on-prem SQL sources. They are the approved method for loading warehouse tables. Question 29. You have a Fabric warehouse named DW1 that contains a Type 2 slowly changing dimension, SCD, dimension table named DIM-Customer. DIM-Customer contains 100 columns and 20 million rows. The columns are of various data types, including int, varchar, date, and var binary. You need to identify incoming changes to the table and update the records when there is a change. The solution must minimize resource consumption. What should you use to identify changes to attributes? A. A hash function to compare the attributes in the source table. B. A direct attributes comparison across the attributes in the DIM-Customer table. C. A direct attributes comparison for the attributes in the source table. D. A hash function to compare the attributes in the DIM-Customer table. Correct answer A. A hash function to compare the attributes in the source table. Explanation. Hashing provides a lightweight way to detect changes across many columns. It avoids heavy row-by-row attribute comparisons on large datasets. Question 30. You have an Azure SQL database named DB1. In a Fabric workspace, you deploy an event stream named EventStreamDB1 to stream record changes from DB1 into a lakehouse. You discover that events are not being propagated to EventStreamDB1. You need to ensure that the events are propagated to EventStreamDB1. What should you do? A. Create a read-only replica of DB1. B. Create an Azure Stream Analytics job. C. Enable extended events for DB1. D. Enable Change Data Capture (CDC) for DB1. Correct answer D. Enable Change Data Capture (CDC) for DB1. Explanation. Event streams rely on change data capture to detect new updates. CDC must be enabled for SQL tables before changes can be streamed. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.